Hello, everybody. Welcome.
Good morning, everyone.
Hi, John. We're gonna do a little tech. We're gonna do a little tech check here for just a moment. Many of you will not be able to unmute, but we'll fix that in just a second. Team, you can help me on catching up on the mutes. That's great. Hey, first of all, can you all hear me and some music in the background? Give me a wave. I can see all of you. Okay, most of you are good on the audio. That's good. You don't have to have it in front of you, but how many of you have either a digital or a physical copy of this workbook nearby? If you do, hold it up or wave it. If you don't, it's not a big deal. This whole thing today can be done with or without the workbook. I'm just gonna say hello. Hi, Paul. Hi, Leslie. Hi, Karina. Hi, Jonathan, Joy, Ben. It's nice to see some familiar faces and close friends and folks we've never met. Marnie Task is here. Deborah, Mark. Hello. My name is John. I'll be one of your co-facilitators today, everybody. It's great to be here. Hey, let's do one more quick tech check. Can you all drop in the chat, where are you zooming in from? Just double check to make sure your chat function works. From Maine, New York, Toronto, sunny California. Oh, those of you in California, thank you for getting up so early. Deborah, at least that would feel early to me. Heidi, thank you for that. And if I don't know any of your names, help me if I mispronounce, or you're welcome to change your name on Zoom right now. You can be anybody you want for the next couple hours here. Melbourne, Australia. Mark, thank you for being here. At the moment, I can't even translate to what time or month it is. Thank you for being here. Elizabeth, Austin, Texas. A few of you, maybe your neighbors. Mexico. Beautiful. All right, we're gonna get started, everybody. Hey, one last tech check here. Just to double check, because this is going to be experiential today. Can I get a thumbs up if you're okay with an interactive experience? Hi, Sarah. Hi, Susie. Good to see you. If you saw our notes ahead of time, we did our best to let you know this is going to be an interactive immersion. If by chance you didn't see that note and you were planning on doing other things, we want to fully give you freedom and permission to come back to a future workshop, because this is a full immersion and you'll really want to be ready to be here and nowhere else. All right, last tech check. If you all want, on the count of 2, you can unmute and say hello. Make sure your unmute works out here. 1, 2. Do you want to try that out, everybody?
Hello, hello.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Hello.
Morning.
I love you.
So good to see everyone. Yeah.
Oh, that's so great. Dr. Daniel Friedland, the author of Leading Well from Within, a dear friend and mentor to many of you. Danny, I want to just invite you to say hello and get us kicked off and introduce anybody else that you'd like to, my friend.
Well, John, hello, dear friends. So, I would love, before I say my appreciations, I would love to invite Susie Ellis to kick it off. And Susie, I want to begin by thanking you for your vision, for your support, and I would ask you to share why this feels a meaningful gathering to you.
Thank you, Danny, and thank you, John. And I'm really delighted to have this start because I've been looking forward to it. I want to just mention how Danny and I met and how it is that we are here today. The Global Wellness Institute, our mission is empowering wellness worldwide. And all I know in my life, in my whole 4 decades, I guess, of the work that I've been doing, is that when I come across something that seems to really resonate and I think other people would value it, then I jump in and make it happen. And when Danny and I first met, it was at a medical conference in LA, and he was speaking as a medical doctor, and he was talking about these databases where you can find the medical evidence for all these modalities. And he was talking about a lot of things like massage and acupuncture, not, all the medical type of things that I would think mostly people use these databases for. Anyway, when I heard him speak, I thought, we need to make this available to the wellness, at that time, the spa, the fitness communities, so that they can find the medical evidence that already exists for a lot of the things that we're doing. And we're told that, yes, there's some evidence, and most of the time we were told there isn't any evidence. So I went up to Danny after he spoke, and we sat down and we realized we were kindred spirits in the fact that this could be really valuable. So that was about 10 years ago. And then we got together with a couple of other doctors, and we put together something that is now called wellnessevidence.com, which wellness evidence. It's a database, and it's put together in such a way that all anyone has to do, and it was really done for the industry, is to go and select the modality. They can, you can click on, massage or yoga or forest bathing or any of the modalities that we use, many of them, and it takes you right to the database where it shows you the clinical evidence of what verifies that or even maybe doesn't. Anyway, it was such an important contribution. We together unveiled it in Bali and at our Global Wellness Summit there. And it's been used ever since, and a lot of media use it as well, and it's been a great resource. So that was such a success. So then when just recently, I would say maybe 3-4 months ago, Sally Frankel and Wendy Basilavich came to me and mentioned to me about Danny's vision for a, something that sort of is a catapult, I think, for his Leading Well from Within book to something that he thinks could be really valuable to help people become better leaders. I just realized that, of course, I'm pretty sure that this is also a good idea, because empowering wellness worldwide is going to take everyone involved to be a leader to affect more people. So I just said yes, and I have not been through this workshop yet, but I'm excited about it, and I've heard that it is one of the best things a person can do if they are a leader or want to be a leader to be more effective for others. So Danny, thank you once again, and Sally and Wendy, and I'm delighted to meet you, John. I can tell already from the introduction that you are a leader that I want to learn from. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Susie. Thank you. So appreciate you, Susie. So I also want to, so the power of this workshop is lies in unlocking group potential in experiential learning. So I want to get to that as fast as possible. So I'm going to do a brief, appreciations. I want to acknowledge our leadership team of Sally and Wendy and Julie and Karina, Heidi, Mo, Dan, Heath, and Alexander, and Tucker, who's been working behind the scenes. I'll frame things up later, but I want to hand it over to John right now. I don't want to take any more time to get into our first activity. So John, take it away.
All right, wonderful. Thank you, Danny, and thank you, Susie. Glad to have you here and everybody. We're going to jump right in. Many of you may have noticed in the pre-communications about this workshop that we're going to spend approximately equal parts in experiences and equal parts being introduced in some cases to the information that centers around awakening conscious leadership. We want to begin with an experience. As Danny said, Danny and I both share in a belief, and we know many of you do as well, that the collective wisdom of 60 plus participants here is significant. So this first experience invites you immediately to bring your grounded experience around leadership into some small group interactions, which serve a secondary benefit. Interesting thing is later on when we unlock or unpack the neuroscience of conscious leadership, you might connect a couple dots that in small groups, It actually gives us an opportunity to feel a sense of love and belonging and connection that enables us to get to the parts of our brains that'll do the deeper learning. So that's why we're going to start with an experience in small groups. But first, I want to give you a couple of instructions, because in just a moment, when I say go, I'm going to ask you to walk away from your screen. I know we just met, and now we're asking you to walk away. So here's the deal. Little background tune coming in. Do you all hear the background tune? All right, just double checking. If you have your workbook, what you're going to see on the second page is an inquiry into when you've been least effective and most effective as a leader. Now, I know you might be tempted to think, oh, I'm going to just start answering these questions with a pen or through reflection. Not quite yet. We're actually going to have you do something where you get up and walk away from your desk as soon as I'm done explaining. We're going to ask you to get up and to go find 2 artifacts, physical symbols, anything that you want to grab in your physical space. And as you may already be guessing, we're going to have you grab one physical artifact that will symbolize or help you to tell a short 30-second story about when you are least effective as a leader. And then we'll have you grab a physical artifact that symbolizes and helps you to tell a story of when are you most effective as a leader. Now, just for fun, so you know when the time is up to find your physical artifacts, we have a good friend of ours, Jeremy Reisig, aka Brother James, who's actually going to play a 1-minute rendition of a song that he wrote, which is titled Love. And you'll know that you are out of time to find your artifacts when Jeremy completes this rendition of the song Love. So again, before you start, Jer, just so everybody gets it, you've got about 1 minute to get up from your space, find 2 physical artifacts that serve as images or symbols that represent, one that represents when are you least effective and one that represents when are you most effective as a leader. Jer, I'll hand it over to you, everybody. You got 1 minute.
In this life of ours, how will we use our hearts? Being human's hard. How will we play these cards? With every choice, we choose our noise. With every look, we use our voice. It's time to stop in the name of love. Drop all the petty stuff. Love will show us the way. Wear it like a body glove. Give away a big hug. Time to demonstrate. Love, love, love. So much love between you and me. Love, love, love. Love remembers the little things. La, 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 love. Love is the puzzle piece that I need. Love, 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 love. Let's get up and play. Enjoy every day. With these words we say, no, 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 no. What will we create when we look into each other's eyes? When we look for strengths we can realize we can't stop in the name of love. Drop all the petty stuff. Love is gonna show us the way. Or wear it like a body glove. Give away a big hug. Time to demonstrate. Love, love, love. So much love between you and me. Love, love, love. Well, love remembers the little things. La, 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 love. Love is the puzzle piece that I need. Love, 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 love. Breathe in, come on. Breathe out. Breathe in and let the heart beat, beat, beat lead us now. Stop in the name of love. Drop all the petty stuff. Love will show us the way. Wear it like a body glove, give away a big hug. It's time to demonstrate a little bit of love.
Well, thank you for that, Jer. That was beautiful. Yeah, you're all welcome to, you could even unmute and give a little applause for our first live musical performance. First, maybe there was.
Oh, baby, now. Wow. Woo.
Jeremy, thank you.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Jer is so talented, not only as a musician, as a facilitator. I happen to know that he was looking on gallery view, giving all of you a chance to get back to your screens. All right, hold up your artifacts, everybody. Hold them up in front of your camera. Let's see what you got. All right, there we go. Can we take a group photo? This is a good time to take a group photo. All right, ready? 1, 2, smile. Why not, right? All right, let's talk about what we're gonna do next. In a moment, you're gonna be going into groups of 3. There could be a couple groups of 4. I'm gonna give you some simple instructions. If you wanna bring your eyes up on the screen, here's what we're gonna do. All right, so in your groups, here you are. These are approximately groups of 3. I'm not here for my art, but that's okay. Here's the first step. The first step is whoever is of the right head or heart, ask that person to share. Just a quick show and tell, And let's go to the red pen for this one, just to keep things on track. This is just 1 minute total, 1 minute total. Share your first artifact and how this symbolizes when you're least effective. Share your second artifact, most effective. And it's 1 minute, everybody, just to make sure this is not your TEDx talk rehearsal. We got to keep the train on the tracks. Are we good on that? All right. You know who you are. All right. So that's the first thing, is they're going to share. Then you probably get the idea. The second person can go. The third person can go. Then what's going to happen is we'll ask you to go back around as a group and just notice and have a brief dialogue, a brief interaction where you explore what are the qualities that you notice are present when you are least effective as leaders and most effective. And each of you individually and collectively in your small groups can pay attention to that. And then when we come back, Danny will help us understand the neuroscience behind moving from here to here. It's part of the goal of today's workshop. So very simple. We really hope you enjoy connecting with and meeting your divinely guided Zoom friends for the next few minutes. By show of hands, how many of you have been in Zoom breakout rooms before? I know by now many of you have. Are any of you brand new to going into a Zoom breakout room? You know what? There's a couple. So just to help those folks out, well, you got to have a little fun. Everybody interlock your fingers. This is how this works, at least for now. Once everybody here is going like this, sorry, we've been on a lot of Zooms. It's a new update. All right, you'll see a blue button. Push the blue button. By the way, you'll be in your breakouts for about 6-7 minutes. We'll tell you when there's 3 minutes, 2 minutes, 1 minute left, and then we'll bring you back. Have a great time, everybody. We'll see you on the other side. Blue button is on its way.
John.
Danny, thank you. Hey, welcome back, everybody. How many of you had a meaningful connection during your breakout room? Yeah. Did anybody make a new friend? I mean, you might as well raise your hand because they might be assessing your assessment of the situation, right? Yeah. All right. Let's do this. Before we come over to Danny to get into the first significant teaching segment today, let's actually invite you to be the teachers, which serves as a significant symbolism. So I'd like to invite a handful of you, maybe 2 or 3 or 4 of you, if you'd like to share anything that stood out from within your groups around what you noticed around your examples of when you are least effective and or most effective as a leader. And if you're not familiar, you can click on the digital reaction button at the bottom of your Zoom screen. You can click on raise hand. If you click any of the other ones, it won't necessarily raise your digital hand, but would love to hear from 2 or 3 or 4 of you on anything you'd like to notice or appreciate around the qualities that came up in your small group discussion around least and most effective as a leader. I see Ben Rooker, you've gotten us kicked off. So we'll start with Ben and then we'd love to have a few more of you bring your voices in. Ben, please go right ahead.
Thank you, John. Yeah, listen, I was with Darlene and Tara and made just a fabulous connection with both of them. And I think one of the things that I noticed and appreciated about both of them was that what made them least effective as a leader could be construed as a strength as long as they didn't become reactive. It was really kind of when it went too far, or where reactivity took over, that strength really became a weakness and a liability. But if they could just stay in that presence of mind, that what made them, what they perceived to be something that would make them least effective, was really something that was a strength and good.
Wow, what a rich distinction there, Ben. I see a couple heads nodding of acknowledgement. Thank you for sharing that, Ben. We're going to come right over to Lisa, and then Lawrence, and then Mark, and then we might wrap with Wendy. Lisa, please go right ahead.
Hey, everybody. I was so grateful to spend time with Amara and John. And what was so interesting about the least effective, it was very much outer focused, not inner balanced. So not connected, outer focused. And then this word constricted or restricted showed up from an energy standpoint. It was really interesting. And then when we went to most effective, there was words like passionate, love, soul's purpose, bigger perspective, right about being in your heart and inner balance. And what showed up was the work that Danny does, living well from within. And it was really, it was just so obvious to us when we were talking. And I think we need both, but without the most effective, boy, you can be least effective. So yeah, thank you for your time, and thank you, Amara and John.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you for sharing that. Wonderful. Lawrence, coming your way. Great to see you, Lawrence. Anything you'd like to share? Yeah.
Good to see you too. And Danny, hello.
Hello.
Nice to be with everybody too. Nice to see you, my friend. So I'll be very brief. It was an interesting path into it, because there was an observation in our group that the things to be letting go of were like metallic and hard on the physical objects that were shown, and the other ones tended to be more soft. But the place we really got to with a common thread was, most wisdom, it's obvious but profound, is that, the letting go is the key of the hard, and connecting into the soft and the subtle wisdom brings the power.
Lawrence, thank you for sharing that. Mark, please go right ahead.
Yeah, hi everybody. So good to see so many familiar faces and friends from across the world. It was really clear to me what came out when people were least effective is when they were focused on themselves and trying to do it themselves and burning out, or focusing on the details rather than the people and the bigger picture. And not reaching out for help. Whereas when people, at least in our group, were the most effective, was when we were championing others and we were transparent. So we sort of lost ourselves, and it became about the whole team and about the big picture. So it wasn't about us. It was about others. So yeah, you're least effective when you focus on the details and just yourself and you're isolated. And then you're most effective when you focus on others and you're in a group and you sort of disappear and become transparent, and it's about just the group.
Mark, thank you for sharing that. Thank you so much. It's enjoyable, by the way, to see many of you just acknowledging and appreciating the wisdom that emerges when your voices are brought in here. So you're welcome to continue to do that through the workshop today. And Wendy, we'll wrap with you. Please.
Okay. Hi, I had the distinct pleasure of being with Charlotte and Deanne. So it was interesting because we came up with the same thing, but very from a different perspective. I used the phone as when I'm the least effective leader because I'm distracted using the phone. And Deanne used the phone for when she's the most effective leader because she's listening to people. And for those who are not familiar yet with the moonshot, and I suggest that you look that up under the Global Wellness Institute, we are all most effective when we are including others. And Danny, to you, what you've shared and taught me through the years is shining the light on others. And that's when we mostly succeed, is when we are including others. Mark, I'm piggybacking on you. So for the month of June, the moonshot is include. And I think that's the greatest thing that we can do, is listen to others' voices as well. Thank you for the opportunity to present.
Yeah.
Checks in the mail, Wendy.
Yeah.
Thank you, Wendy. Danny, over to you.
Well, I love that I really encourage you to look at the Wellness Moonshot and the serendipity of the theme this month on inclusive leadership is extraordinary. So please go look at that. It's uncanny. What I'd like to share is I'd like to have you reflect on why is awakening conscious leadership important to you? From a me, we, and world perspective. So as I share my journey briefly, I would encourage you to make notes in each of these circles for yourself, and perhaps we'll come back at the end and we'll get to share. So for me personally, when I was diagnosed, I have tumors in the very area of the neuroscience of conscious leadership that I'm going to show you I've got on my prefrontal cortex. So I'm challenged internally, and I've got my stunt double over here, Dan Diamond, if I was having seizures and word block. And so if anything happens during this workshop, Dan's going to step in for me. When I got my diagnosis, I was in a height of reactivity. I was in fear. You could say I was a very ineffective leader. I went from what now, and the blessing of entering the exchange community, elevating questions. I went from what now to what matters most now. And that touched down in a cascade of questions. Questions create worlds. And so the question, what now, creates a world of suffering. But the question, what matters most now, touches down into a world of flourishing, because it cascades. The only answer that makes sense when your life is running short, and by the way, all of our lives are running shorter and shorter by the day, is make every moment count. And then the question becomes how? And for me, the answer, make every moment count in the cycle of receiving and giving love in relationships, and leave a legacy with my work. So you may want to actually look through that lens in whatever answers come your way. And then from a we perspective, you know, that living well from within is a movement. When you did that activity, there's a movement of from reactivity to creativity that is a movement of elevation. So when we know how to elevate ourselves, we can elevate the we around us. We can elevate our families. We can elevate others at work. And so think how you're doing that when you're effective. There's a social contagion. We're wired to connect. Think about when you're best, think about when you're at worst, you're at your least effective as a leader, how your team fragments. Think about when you're elevated at your best as a leader, how your team flourishes. So it threads from that last activity, which is significant. And then here we are at doing the work of the Global Wellness Summit and the Global Wellness Institute in community. And here it's unprecedented. Susie, we've never opened the ecosystem this big, right? Everybody, you know, the ecosystem is open now. This is whole system change. What if we came together as a global community to affect change? You know, this aspiration of the Wellness Moonshot is an aspect of, it's visionary, it's aspirational, but it takes living well from within. It begins with the core of being able to elevate ourselves and then be able to elevate and motivate teams to create that global change. And so what I'd love to do is I'd love to invite Alexander McCoben, the CEO of Conscious Capitalism, to speak about the 4 tenets of conscious capitalism and the purpose statement of it. And you'll see the congruence from the we perspective, that there's a theme of elevation in each of these levels, moving from the low performance state to the high performance state. On the we level, because our brains are wired to connect, when we elevate ourselves, we elevate and inspire others. And then we can actually, from a global perspective, we have the capacity to create global change. So it is my privilege to introduce you to the CEO of Conscious Capitalism to explain why the act of elevation, moving from a low performance state to a high performance state, is central to their purpose, and what happens and transpires from that. The power of that awakening. So I want to introduce you to Alexander McCoben, who I've been blessed to have a personal relationship with for the last 4 years. He's the heart and soul of the conscious capitalism movement. He is the CEO of Conscious Capitalism. And the awakening of his conscious leadership over the last 4 years has personally been incredibly inspiring to me as the model of what the essence of what a conscious leader can be or is.
I don't know if I'm going to be able to live up to that introduction, but I have to say that I'm the one who's really been blessed by getting to know Danny for so many years now. And our personal relationship has had many levels to it. It began as a coaching relationship. I've had the great privilege of having Danny as a coach for the last 4 years and becoming friends over that time at another level. And I just have to say, it has been an absolute honor and pleasure to work with him, and such a treat for everyone here to get an insight to Danny's work, because so much of what we're covering today is foundational to what conscious capitalism represents, and so much of what Danny has offered to the community of conscious capitalism, to our movement over the years, long before when I came to conscious capitalism as one of the founders of the San Diego chapter of conscious capitalism, as a speaker at our conferences, and as someone developing conscious leadership, is helping pave the path for how we really develop a conscious capitalist future. Because one of the tenets of conscious capitalism, a critical tenet, is for businesses to be run with conscious leadership, with full understandings of the implications of decisions, and beyond that, for leaders to not only have analytic intelligence, but emotional, systemic, and spiritual intelligence, and infuse their work and their businesses with things that we don't often hear in the business world, like empathy, compassion, and love. Yes, running businesses with love being a core part of elevating the way that we practice business and creating a better future. And for anyone who's not familiar with conscious capitalism, we are a movement of business leaders who are dedicated to improving both the practice and perception of capitalism to elevate humanity, really understanding the human nature of these endeavors and leaning into what are the best parts of capitalism business to create a more harmonious, prosperous, and flourishing world for everyone.
So,
Yeah,
Alexander,
Danny.
could you expand on the movement by sharing some of the businesses that are commonly known, and then the 4 tenets, and then the purpose statement of conscious capitalism?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So our purpose is to elevate humanity through business, to build a movement of business leaders that are improving the practice and perception of capitalism to elevate humanity. And this goes back over a decade, this movement, to after the financial crisis, especially, when business leaders like John Mackey, the CEO of Whole Foods, Kip Tindall, the CEO of the Container Store, Ron Shaich from Panera Bread, and others started to get together and say, most people just misunderstand what business is. They say either for good or bad, it's about maximizing profit, and everyone that a business works with is just a means to that ends. But that's not how they were running their businesses, and that's not how they think business and capitalism are really supposed to be. Instead, they articulated this human-centric approach to capitalism and business that is run on 4 tenets. The first being having a higher purpose than just maximizing profit. It's not that profit's bad, it's an important thing, but it's a means to serve something greater. The second tenet was stakeholder orientation, meaning looking beyond win-lose situations where, in order to benefit one stakeholder group, say shareholders, you have to take from another, from your customers, your employees, and instead finding win-win-win solutions where every stakeholder benefits, shareholders included in that, but also especially employees, suppliers, customers, the community, the environment. Find ways that everyone is better off from what businesses do. Third tenet is conscious culture, where everyone who works for a company and everyone who engages with it is able to bring their full authentic selves to work, to lean into what makes them most productive, and that actually makes them better off when they leave work to lead more fulfilling lives outside of the company. Building those relationships in that culture where people are able to be fully authentic and honest with each other, and so create harmonious prosperity for both themselves and everyone else in the company. And the fourth tenet, as I mentioned before, is conscious leadership. Because if you don't have that conscious leadership from the top, infusing this into everything else in the organization, you're not going to be able to follow through on the other tenets of conscious capitalism. And that's why this work is so important and why Danny has been so influential and impactful in the conscious capitalism movement.
Yeah, thank you, Alexander. I want to come back to what Alexander has shared about the four tenets. And especially the first tenet, the purpose statement of the first tenet: we exist to elevate humanity. So there's this theme of elevation on a me, we global level. It threads through. And that theme of elevation is Maslowian. It maps into the human brain. So let me give you another data point. Raj Sisodia wrote a book. He was one of the founders of the movement. He wrote a book called Firms of Endearment. When you talk about love, Firms of Endearment. And he followed 28 companies over a 15-year period, and he found that these companies outperformed the market by 10-1. So I became fascinated around the neuroscience of why. Why is that? And so fundamentally, the brain maps to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. There's a concept called, this is a conceptual model. The brain, there's a concept of the triune brain put forth by Paul MacLean in the 1960s at the National Institutes of Mental Health, which triune means three. First part of the triune brain focuses on safety. It's known as the reptilian brain. The second part of the triune brain has many functions, including pair bonding. So that gives rise to love, belonging, and then the third part of the triune brain is the newest in evolution. It's the neocortex. And this front part here is the prefrontal cortex. And that gives us the capacity to live with purpose and significance. It's my spelling. And that part of the brain has a lot of the awakened conscious leadership qualities. So it integrates all levels below it. If you were going to actually designate the CEO of your brain, you would designate that part of your brain, because it has a number of qualities, including emotional regulation, the ability to pause before you react. It has the ability to integrate and relate well to people, because it actually integrates social awareness, empathy, morality. It is the seat of executive function, judgment, planning, abstraction. And it's the seat of something called metacognition or mindful awareness. So there's an elevation. Now there's another dot to connect over here. And that is, there's a formula that looks at when demands, it's a formula between demands and resources, when demands exceed resources. So think about when the demands exceed resources for you. We go down into a threat response, into a cycle, a downward spiral of reactivity. And what happens is we tend to fight and take flight against threat and self-doubt. So we do things like we fight to prove self-worth, or we take flight from things that trigger self-doubt, or we fight for control, or we take flight from things that leave us feeling out of control. On the other hand, when resources exceed demands, we elevate into a state of high performance leadership, in a state with a creative mindset. So we oscillate between this rigid reactive mindset and this elevated, from what you've described yourselves, in the more cognitively flexible, expansive, high performance leadership state. Now, here's the thing about that brings this all, that ties into flourishing wellness. The elevation we feel, leaders that know how to cultivate safety within themselves and their teams, leaders that know how to more deeply connect with themselves and their teams, or connect with their purpose and connect their teams with greater purpose, create healthy organizations or healing in their organizations, and create healthy and flourishing organizations of wellness and well-being, all the way down to the bottom line. And so that's the way a lot of this threads together. Now, the nature, before I pivot back to John, which I want to emphasize, is that the base of the brain, we don't need any more training to be more reactive, because there's a gravitational pull. The strongest circuits, our brain's primer is safety first. So the strongest circuits in the brain are the reactive circuits. There's a gravitational pull. Peter Drucker has a famous quote. He says, all organizations are a mix of friction, confusion, and low performance, meaning where the default is reactivity. And then he says, everything else requires leadership. So ultimately, leadership, the elevation needs to be cultivated. And so the base of the brain is fast reactive, whereas the top of the brain is slow wise. So the skills and practices of awakening conscious leadership when you think of each of these levels of frames of engagement, there's a safety frame, love and belonging frame, a significance frame. It involves having the awareness, having the attunement to recognize which frame you are in, because sometimes we are so reactive, we don't even know we are. How many of you know that feeling? So the skills and practices required is recognizing the frames of engagement and elevating the frames of engagement. John, over to you.
Thank you, Danny. I'm enjoying being here as a student right now. And it definitely hit home for me when you said, we don't need any more training on how to be reactive. As a parent of a 6-year-old, a 10-year-old, and an 11-year-old, that rings true for me. How many of you enjoyed the opportunity just now for Danny to break that down for us? Yeah, awesome. Well, here's what we're going to do. Our team agreed that if this was going to be an experiential workshop centered around Danny's work on awakening conscious leadership, and at the center of Danny's work, right at the center, is the ability to be mindful. We realized it would be incongruent to not have at least a few minutes where we actually flex that muscle of mindfulness. What we want to do, though, is we also recognize we've been here for coming up on about an hour, and we do have a full agenda packed up until the last minute of these 2 hours. And so I want to give all of you 2 minutes to refill your water glass, stretch your legs if you need to use the restroom. If you can do something kind for yourself or somebody else, hug a tree, hug a human, get some sunshine, water your plants, anything that nurtures your well-being or the well-being of others. And if that's okay, Danny, let's give everyone a short moment. And then when they come back, we're going to jump right back into an experience. That sound good, everybody? All right. There's only one required rule, is during these 2 minutes, if you can, get away from your screen. Get away from the screen. We love seeing all of you. Get away, though. Go have a human connection, if you can, if you can. We'll see y'all in a couple minutes. Welcome back, Mark. Hello, Jonathan. Hi, Joy. Hi, Julie. You get to bring your own snacks to this workshop. Hopefully there were no lines at the bathrooms. You get to wear whatever you want or don't want. It's Zoom. I mean, this is our whole new world of meeting, isn't it? Of course, it'll be nice to be back in person again soon as well. Those of us who can. All right, I see some of you have nourished yourselves. Hey, if you did something either really inspiring or really uninspiring, either one, drop it in the chat box. Let's get to know each other. Jackie, you gave your husband a hug. It felt awesome. That's super cool. Look at that, Danny. The real-time results. The workshop is already creating an impact.
Amazing.
All right. Danny, I'm ready to go if you're okay.
Yes, I am.
All right. All right. Beautiful. All right. We're going to take a few minutes here, and we're going to lead a brief mindfulness experience. If you have your workbook in front of you, I'll draw your attention over here to page 5. Now, Danny shared these words earlier, so I'm just going to fill them in, although some of you may have, and I'm sure Danny might talk about this again. And Danny defined mindfulness as the power to pause, to notice, and to choose. And through that fantastic explanation that you just gave, Danny, helping us to understand what's going on inside of us, that ability to pause, notice, and choose is really what sits at the base of being able to move from that downward, as you said, to that upward spiral. And we're going to lead an experience right now that actually originates from a shared teacher to both Danny and I, a gentleman named Shinzen Young. He's also the author of this book, The Science of Enlightenment. I know that some of you are already familiar with unified or basic mindfulness, which Shinzen created a number of years ago. But the reason Danny and I appreciate Shinzen's particular practice right now is because it is a practice that that brings together a richness that, regardless of what your chosen meditation, mindfulness, contemplative practice is, what Shinzen originally created many years ago is a beautiful way of connecting at the deepest level to what many consider to be the true essence of mindfulness, which is really the ability to pause and to notice before we even have the privilege of choosing. So if you're ready to go, take a nice big inhale and a nice big exhale. You're welcome at your own rhythm or pace to continue to maybe slow or deepen your breathing or even adjust your posture. Whatever you can do to be both relaxed and present, whatever serves you is fantastic. This particular experience, I'm going to guide this for about the next 5 minutes or so. This particular experience is known as a tour of the senses. In this tour of the senses, as I guide it, I'll also give you invitations of when it might make more sense for eyes to be open or closed. And there are times where you can choose. You think about the very beginning of this workshop today, when several of you mentioned what were the qualities that you noticed between when you are least effective and most effective. You know, Wendy, your example of the phone, of being distracted. This tour of the senses actually brings us right to the essence of where distractions come from. They come from an inner place often. They can come externally as well. But at the end of the day, it's what those external stimuli have on our inner world. Lawrence, you mentioned the idea of connecting to a subtle wisdom. This tour of the senses, in a couple ways, invites us to strengthen the attention skill of being able to notice at subtle levels what's going on. Lisa and Mark both mentioned the distinction between connected on ourselves versus others. This tour of the senses will also get right to the essence of being able to pause and notice when something may have taken over from within, when intellectually we have a purpose to serve others, but unconsciously we're caught up in our own stuff. Disclaimer, as a parent of 3 and as the person that will lead this experience, it's far easier to talk about this than to do it every day, but let's do it. Everybody ready? Take one more nice big inhale and an exhale. For this tour of the senses, I'm going to invite you to begin with your eyes open. And we're going to start with the sensory location of seeing. All of our experiences can be distilled down to some level to what we see, hear, or feel. And for the next minute, I'm going to invite you with your eyes looking out to simply allow your visual attention to go where it goes. It might fixate, it might wander. And every time I say the word see, I encourage you with an openness, a kindness to yourself, and a curiosity to do nothing more than just notice anything in your visual space, anything that you might see. See. As you look around, you might notice the texture of something in front of you on your desk or the color of something on the wall. See. This is simply nothing more than an invitation to explore whatever it is that you see outside of your physical being. See. See. Maybe your attention settles in on one particular artifact or object. See. Maybe it moves around from one place to another. See. Now I'm going to invite you for this next minute to close your eyes and to see within. Now that could be an image that you hold on the movie theater of your mind's eye. It could be a static image or a moving picture, or maybe there's nothing at all. That could be true. See in. And all we are doing right now is simply flexing the muscle of being able to pause and maybe notice anything that may exist or may not when you see in. See in. See in. See in. Our tour of the senses now is going to shift towards whatever you might hear. Now, you're welcome to keep your eyes closed. For some, that will serve, or you can have them open. Either one is fine. And I'm going to invite you for the next moment or so to simply notice anything that you hear outside of your physical being, outside of the space between your two ears. Naturally, for some of you, what your attention might be drawn to again and again is my voice, just because of the context of the moment. Here. Maybe what you hear outside of you is a background sound. There could be others in your physical space. There could be vehicles outside of your building. Maybe there's a flickering of a ventilation system, or maybe there's nothing at all. But what might you notice when I invite you to hear? Hear. And if your thoughts or your attention wanders one way or another, it's all part of the practice. With kindness and curiosity, flex the attention skill and bring it right back to anything that you might hear. 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 Now we're going to transition to hearing not the sounds outside of our physical space, to whatever we might hear on the inside. By show of hands, how many of you talk to yourselves? How many of you have multiple little voices? Doesn't have to be a weakness, that can be a strength. Well, for the next moment, just invite you to hear the conversation that may or may not be happening within. Maybe you're in a restful place and you don't hear anything within. Or maybe you hear yourself having a conversation with yourself about this very experience. That's fine. Hear in. Hear in. Hear in. Hear in. Hear in. We're going to transition. And finally, to wrap up our tour of the senses together, we're going to go to the sensory experience of feel. We'll start by feeling, just as we saw and heard outside of ourselves, by feeling outwards. And we're talking about any physical body sensation. So for the next moment or so, anything that you can feel physically to flex this muscle. It could be the texture of your clothing on your skin. Feel. It could be just feeling and noticing the weight of your bottom on your seat. Feel. Maybe you have a level of relaxation physically at this moment. You might feel that. Maybe there's a strain or a tension or an ache. Feel. 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 And finally, we're going to land the airplane here with feeling in. If you think about this tour that we've been on together, seeing, hearing, and feeling, And you think about the moments in our lives and in our work when maybe we are least effective at being able to pause, notice, and choose. It is often because from within, a source of distraction or disempowerment might be coming from an inner conversation. Maybe it's an image of seeing a future or the past that we do or didn't want. Or maybe it's a combination of those and a physical emotion. I think when we're really stressed out and really reactive, it's all three of those senses becoming entangled. This experience we just had today is the beginning of a practice called unified mindfulness, which is the beginning of learning how to disentangle where these inner experiences might get tangled up. So let's feel in. You're welcome to keep eyes open or close if it serves. And for the next moment, any physical, emotional sensations. Of course, you might find emotions specifically residing in different physical places. Or maybe you're in an emotional place of rest that there is nothing that you notice. Feel in. Feel in. Maybe there's a sense of peace or contentment, and you feel that associated with your breathing or your body. Feel in. Maybe there's a source of stress or concern, and maybe you notice a place in your body. Feel in. Any emotional feeling, mood that you can distinguish, feel in. Or maybe there's nothing at all. Feel in. All right, everybody. I'm going to invite all of you to bring your whole selves right to where you are. And before we transition over to Danny to build a bridge between what we just did and navigating stress, we want to invite maybe a few of you, 2 or 3 or 4 of you. It'd be nice if we get to hear voices we didn't get to hear yet today. Either way is fine. But any of you who'd like to reflect on anything that you noticed, even as you reflect back on that tour of the senses. There's certainly no good, bad, right, or wrong, anything at all that you may have noticed that went on within you during that tour of the senses. Would just love to get a couple of brief reflections. And if there's a few of you that want to share, you can click on reactions on the bottom of your Zoom screen, raise your digital hand. Just would love to hear a couple of reactions to anything you may have noticed that you experienced within before we transition for the next teaching segment here. We'll start with you, Jackie. Thanks for raising your hand. And Jackie, anything that you'd like to share, please.
Sure. So one of the things that I found really interesting and I liked was the moment of seeing. And each thing that I looked at actually brought up a memory and an emotional reaction of joy. So I appreciated that.
Nice. Thank you for sharing that. That's nice that you had that experience. It's great. Thank you. Thank you, Jackie. Love to hear if there's maybe 1 or 2 more. I see several of you commenting in the chat, which is nice as well. If you want to bring your voices to your comments, you're welcome to. But it'd be nice to bring maybe 1 or 2 more voices in. Marnie, I see your physical hand up, and then we'll come to Dion to finish with her digital hand up. Marnie, please go right ahead.
So what I noticed is that even just the act of paying attention to whatever it is, see, hear, feel, automatically slows you down and settles you and grounds you, and just how quickly things shift. Like if you're looking at something that I forgot what your name is, the lovely person who just spoke, that Jackie, thank you. How quickly the visual gives you an emotional reaction or a thought, or that it goes so quick to something tangible on the outside and then emotional on the inside.
Thank you for sharing that, Marnie. Thank you. Dion, last one, and then we'll come to Karina, who got her hand up just in time, and then we'll come to you, Danny. Dion, please, go right ahead.
Thank you. John, I've been a recipient of this beautiful gift you give us many times. This time I heard you say, what emotions are you feeling? And I have sore shoulders from gardening and pulling weeds yesterday. And as soon as you invited us, what emotion are you feeling? It went straight to my heart, and I just feel so much love and joy to be here with all of you. And my shoulder pain is just went away. So it's magic sauce. Super appreciative. Thank you.
Oh, Dion, thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that. That is great to hear. Karina, you could be the last share.
Thank you. I really enjoyed how the state of being connected from the visual to the listening and then to the feeling just took me deeper and deeper simultaneously into being more connected externally and then internally, and how easy and what a natural easy flow, and then from there the expanded connectivity. There was a great sense of expansion, which seems almost juxtaposed to the attention, sort of focused attention, but then very much a great state of calm and connectivity and expansiveness. So easy, so effortless. It was beautiful. Thank you.
Glad you had that experience. Thank you for sharing that, Karina. Thank you. Danny, coming over to you to transition us to the next teaching segment, please.
What I'm feeling now, as you were sharing, Karina, I'm feeling a deep sense of love because I have memories of being with you and John at Kamalaya, which was a very special time in my life. So I'm going to come back to this slide in your handout on page 5. Mindfulness is the power to pause, notice, and choose. It's the foundation of awakening conscious leadership because it gives us the capacity to recognize and be attuned to where we are in space. There are qualities that John has alluded to. There are qualities, and the definition, and there are many other definitions of, including John Kabat-Zinn, but the definition that I offer is that mindfulness is the practice of paying attention with a sense of openness, kindness, and curiosity for whatever is arising in the present moment. And with that, mindfulness becomes an elevating practice, because what happens is when we feel unsafe, a lot of the times it's because we're resisting what's happening. And the act of opening into a space, the act of opening releases the resistance that actually cultivates an internal sense of safety. Claiming the safety frame. Kindness claims the belonging frame. And curiosity, insatiable curiosity, claims the significance frame. It is impossible to be stressed, reactive, and curious at the same time. Next time you get stressed, become fascinated by your stress. So it's like, just step back and look, say, this is fascinating. So what, on the foundation of that, in the book, Leading Well from Within, I've got 4 steps on that, off that foundation that elevates the frames of engagement. And It's called the 4 in 4 framework because each of these 4 steps has 4 components to that. And clearly we can't do all 4 steps here. So I thought we'd focus on step 2, reframing or reappraising stress. Does that sound like a good idea for the amount of stress we've all been under recently? So I'm going to ask you to put in the chat box, do you typically experience stress as a demand or a resource? What's typical for you? Yeah. I'm noticing a predominance of demand. When demands exceed resources, there's a downward spiral of reactivity in the threat response. So stress is not a singular construct. There are at least three different types of stress. When you experience demands greater than resources, you're going to experience the threat response version of it. Now, by the way, reactivity is not bad and creativity is not good in global terms. Is it because the brain is built for safety first, but it was designed to save our life predominantly from physical danger. So the hypervigilance for COVID contagion is adaptive, but ultimately it's overused for psychological triggers where we have stress and self-doubt, and we go into our fight and flight responses where we fight for control and we have sleepless nights. So it's overused. And which brings us to two more options. The next option is what's called the tend and befriend response. Tend and befriend response. So when we get stressed, we don't only release cortisol, we release oxytocin. So what you may feel when you get stressed is the desire to get aggressive or isolate, but you may also have the desire to call a family member or a friend. And those can coexist. And it's easier to isolate, frankly, sometimes. But the choice to swim in the stream of connecting with somebody is sometimes a better choice. So the idea with that meta-awareness that John has helped us cultivate helps you expand your choice in terms of the emotional landscape by which you can choose. And then the third type of when you are resourced by your stress, when stress is a resource, when the energy of stress is fuel for performance, that's called the challenge response. That's the time in your life when you're amped up, but you're using every ounce of that energy of stress as fuel for performance. And when you're in that zone, how many of you have actually felt stressed and you say, it's go time, it's go time? That's the moment. And when you're in the challenge response, the physiology of the body changes. Rather than it vasoconstrict, it vasodilates, and you get more blood to the brain. It's associated with all kinds of high performance outcomes in the research. So who would like to learn very quickly how to convert the threat response version of stress to the challenge response? Awesome. It's simply a matter of changing the definition of stress, of reframing the definition of stress. And this was discovered by researchers at Stanford, Alia Crum and Kelly McGonigal. The typical definition of stress is, can I cope? How many of you resonate with that definition of stress? So when you get stressed, it's a marker of not being able to cope very well. Yeah. And when you get stressed, do you feel, typically, if you feel it as a demand, do you feel strong or weak? Yeah. What Kelly McGonigal and Alia Crum, they've refined the definition of stress, and that changes the game. You'll never look at stress the same way again. And feel into this definition. Stress is what arises when something you care about is at stake. How does that make you feel? How does that make you feel? So you don't get stressed because you're weak. You get stressed because you give a damn. Now think about the areas of your life where you get stressed. You don't get stressed in areas of your life in which you're indifferent, unless you choose to cope with stress by becoming indifferent. You get stressed in the areas of your life that mattered most to you: family, work. So stress is a marker not of weakness, but of deep caring and passion. And so the skill, the four components of reframing stress is, let's get real with stress. Let's get real with stress. And it's a mnemonic that stands for, let's start by recognizing it. And then once we recognize it, rather than resist it, because it's a marker of something we care about, moving into the embrace of it. Moving into the embrace of it. Embracing stress as a friend and an asset. And then asking the questions. If you ask the question from a place of trying to cope with it, how can I better cope with it? You're going to get the answer come back often, or sometimes, second bottle of Chardonnay should do it. Or more sadly yet, I'm going to care less about what matters most. I'm going to become indifferent. That's a sadder answer. the more productive question, what do I care most about? And then, what do I care most about? What are the smallest steps I can take to leverage what I care most about? So, to map in, recognize, embrace, ask, leverage, to map, that maps against openness, the qualities of openness. That maps, the embrace maps with the qualities of kindness. The ask maps with the qualities of curiosity. And the leverage is well, let me show you. The ask, so this is the pause, and notice. And this is transitioning from the asking and leverage. The insights you get is pause, notice, and choose. So, John.
I'm ready, Danny.
I love it. I'm excited for everybody to take this further in an experiential activity that you're going to lead.
Well, thank you. And how many of you deeply appreciate the reframing of stress is something that we care deeply about? And Danny, you giving us these questions, well, this next activity is going to seem like the obvious step to take right now as soon as you hear what we're doing, because we are going to take exactly what Danny just gave us and bring it alive in a way that is simple, but might be unconventional for some of you. But I think you'll find it to be very human very quickly. So here's what's about to happen. This is our last activity to bring home the essence and to bring alive everything that Danny just shared with us for the last few minutes. If you want to go into your workbooks in page 8, there's a simple handout that can help guide this. And we're about to do an activity that is referred to and known as what are called paired interviews. So as you might guess, we're going to be dropping you into pairs in just a minute here when I'm done with the instructions. And in those pairs, as you may also have guessed, you're going to interview each other. Now, why do we use these interviews in a learning workshop like this? Well, for a group like this, my guess is you might, without me needing to explain it, already see, hear, and feel the power of what happens when one person is deeply curious about another. In fact, if you think about Danny's teachings, and if you think about the extraordinary work from some of the great teachers like Amy Edmondson on the importance of psychological safety, and you start to deconstruct what helps people to feel safe, being seen, heard, and felt by another is one of the fast pathways, and pairs can be one of the safest places to express. Now, you all have freedom of choice in how you approach these paired interviews, but here is what's going to happen. It's pretty straightforward. We are going to have you'll go in and decide who's going to go first. And you'll have 5 minutes for person A to interview person B. And then we'll send a note through that says, hey, it's time to switch. And then person B will interview person A for the next 5 minutes. The whole activity is just going to be about 10 minutes. So what is the substance of the interview? What are the questions? Well, Danny already gave you the questions. What we're going to encourage you to do is to think about an area in your life where you are currently experiencing some level of stress. Of course, you have total freedom to choose how you decide and what area you choose. And the question we're going to invite you to ask each other is number one, I'm just looking at my own notes here, right? What is it that you care about deeply? What do you care about deeply as it relates to this area of stress? Right? We're just going to take the very questions that Danny gave us. And there's something significant that happens when in the presence of another person, we're invited to bring this from a reflection to an articulation. There's a magic between the thinking and the speaking it into existence. And then as a follow-on question, after the person gets a chance to reflect, hey, here's what this reveals I care deeply about. What's the smallest step you can take? What's the smallest step or steps that you can take in a forward direction to move forward in this area that you care about? Now, there's one other simple instruction here. I'm guessing this is probably pretty straightforward. And I want to model this for a second. I'm looking out on the screen. I see Leslie. Hi, Leslie. Let's say I'm interviewing Leslie. We get into the room. If I'm going to interview her first, I'm going to say, hey, Leslie, whatever you're willing and able to share with me, I'd love to hear about an area of your life that is a source of stress. And Leslie, what does that reveal in terms of something that you care deeply about? And I just want to listen. That's it. I'm there to listen. And then Leslie will share whatever she feels compelled to share. And then when it's right, I'll say, Leslie, what feels like a possible smallest step that you could take towards that area of your life that you care deeply about? And so what I'm doing is nothing more than being hopefully open, kind, and curious with and for Leslie. But there's one more thing. Before we switch at the 5-minute mark, before we switch, I am going to reflect back to Leslie anything that reveals that I saw, heard, or felt what she said. Okay? It can be a strength that I see in her. It could be something I appreciate that I felt. It could be something I heard that inspired me. Anything that reflects back that we are seen, heard, or felt by the other person. And then we switch. Leslie will interview me for about 5 minutes. We will send all of you a note in at about the halfway mark. So just keep an eye on that, and wherever you're at, try and do your best to honor giving each other an equal amount of time, and we'll bring you out in probably just over 10 minutes. If you feel clear enough on the instructions for this activity, give me a wave, a dance move, a sign of life. All right, that's more than enough right there. The rest of you will sort it all out. So you're in pairs. You're going to be given a blue box. We'll see you in just over 10 minutes. We'll add a minute or two for you to introduce yourselves and sort things out. See you on the other side, everybody. Welcome back. Hey, Ben. Hello, Karina. Hi, Deborah. You're welcome to drop a note of appreciation to your partner in the Zoom chat if you want. Welcome to do that. Everyone else is on their way back. Hi, Jennifer. Hi, Nancy. Hi, Jackie. Hello, Anne. It is good to see you. Hi, Paul. Ben. Steve. Kari. Welcome back. Welcome back, everybody. Did anybody have a meaningful connection? Yeah. Hey, you're welcome. Some of you are already doing it. You're welcome to put notes in the Zoom chat if you want to appreciate your partner or shine light on your partner, whatever you'd like. Okay, we're getting towards the end here. We would love to bring a few of your voices in. If any of you want to appreciate either anything about the interview that you just did or the person that interviewed you, would love to get a handful of digital hands. Maybe we could get to 2 or 3 or 4 of you briefly, quickly. We'll start with Elizabeth. Anything or anybody you wanted to acknowledge or appreciate, Elizabeth, please do. Oh, hold on, Elizabeth, before you go, forgive me. There's an important disclaimer after an activity like that. If any of you are wanting to share, but there's any question in your mind that something they shared they would want to keep confidential, then just be thoughtful about that. That's all. Thanks for letting me share that, everybody. Elizabeth, anything you'd like to share or appreciate about the experience or your partner, please go right ahead.
All I can say is each and every one of these things are more amazing by the minute. But Ida, you are amazing. For the first time in 50 years, I heard this statement, and I want to share it because, wow. I'm going to be passing it to all of my students because it was amazing. Ida believes that nature deserves to be heard, felt, and understood. I have never heard that in that way in my entire life. So thank you so much for sharing that, because the way she explained it was amazing. So thanks, Ida. And I will be following up with my students for sure.
Elizabeth, thank you for that. Wonderful. Beautiful. I love seeing the notes you're sharing with each other. Marnie, please, anything you wanted to share or acknowledge, please.
Yes, I would love to acknowledge my partner. And again, and I'm like spacing out on everybody's names today. My partner had the courage to literally uproot herself from Santa Fe, listening to her health, to move to Fort Myers, and to just have the courage to ask her husband for help, and instead of doing things all on her own. And I think a lot of us tend to do things all by ourselves instead of asking for help.
Marnie, thank you for sharing that. I see by several heads nodding appreciation for what you just shared. Jean-Guy, please, would love to hear.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd like to extend my gratitude for Leslie's presence and unconditional love in what she's going through right now and what we shared, and the quality of hearing also. And thank you, Daniel, and you, John, and all of you at the Global Wellness Institute, and for creating a moment of connection right now, and grounding, so that it's not just about hoping for the light at the end of the tunnel, but realizing that if we see a tunnel and if we see the light, it's maybe because we have tunnel vision, and maybe because there's so much stress that we are so focused on the end of the tunnel that we forget to imagine or realize that we can be the light in the tunnel, and that we can help extend that light to others. And you are definitely that light, that sun, Danny. So thank you. Sorry for the emotion in my voice, but thank you for this moment of connection and an immense love in what we can learn, grow, and share with others. Thank you.
Oh, wow. Jean-Guy, thank you for sharing that. Deeply meaningful. Thank you. Corinna, please, you can be the last one, please.
I just wanted to share what a powerful moment and connection Darlene and I had. We've never met, and we were able to be very open and very emotional, and share things very deep from our hearts. And you know, Darlene really came out with something very powerful about the small step to take is just to be present, rather than thinking too far ahead. Being present in the moment and truly appreciating what you have. So thank you, Darlene, for sharing that time with me and sharing your heart.
Wow. Corinna, thank you. Well, we have one more final task, and some would even say we have a little surprise for all of you. Who likes little surprises, if they're positive and uplifting? Well, we started with a live musical performance, and we're going to finish one that I think for many of you will also be a peak experience, a high point moment. A couple technical things. Team, if you can help us on the mutes, that'll help. Danny, I'm going to make a subtle shift here. I wanted to invite you to say anything you'd like, because we will close with the survey and the song together, because having done this before, I think we could see that it'll be a beautiful way to wrap with the song. So Danny, is there anything you'd like to share or express before I give instructions to everybody on the survey and the song?
Well, John, I want to express appreciation for you. I billed you as the world's greatest facilitator coming in. And I hope you've had that experience that I've had. This was about us coming in community to unlock collective wisdom. And I just want to appreciate each one of you, dear friends, for the way you've fully engaged in support of us all. And it just shows what we can do as a community. And that gives us hope going forward.
Danny, thank you for that. Thank you for that. Well, a gift that all of you can give to Danny, and frankly to each other and arguably to the world, is to fill out this short survey right now. And I'm going to show you and explain why. And here's the coolest part about this. You are going to be entertained by the Peter Katz, who's going to play a song while you fill out this survey. And the song might be about a 3 or 4 minute song. I recognize we're up on time. We fully respect if any of you have to go. But if you're able to at least open the survey, the link will be dropped in the Zoom chat box right now. And I'm just going to show all of you, if you're looking up on the screen, I just want you to see what is on this survey. We're simply asking for you to rate the experience. How likely would you be to recommend it to others? What did you like most? What would you like to see? And I'll say this now and probably again, we're going to be running these workshops in many ways, in many places. This was the first, so thank you for being here. If there's a statement you could give us that we could use for marketing purposes, of course, we ask you for permission. And if there's not a statement, that's okay. Also, this is an important note. There is a group of us, of which I am just one of many, who are working with Danny to bring his work to the world so that his work can expand beyond the need for him to be there to deliver it, which is an aspiration that many subject matter experts like Danny have. And there's a lot of us that are helping him with that right now. If you would like to be informed about how to introduce this workshop to other groups, how to bring this training, maybe a bigger version of it, into an organization, we have an event on August 3rd, 4th, and 5th. We already have approximately 75 to 100 people slated to be at a 3-day version of today's 2-hour workshop. If you want information on that, just check the box. If you want to be sent information on how to get connected with Conscious Capitalism or the Global Wellness Institute, and that's it. We do ask, is there anything else? So the link is in the chat. I'm going to hand it over to Peter Katz. And Peter, you can take us away. Thank you, everybody, and for being here today.
Remember those walls are built, baby, they're tumbling down. They didn't even put up a fight, they didn't even make a sound. I found a way to let you in, but I never really had a doubt. Standing in the light of your halo, I've got my angel now. It's like I've been awakened. Every rule you had me breaking, it's a risk that I'm taking. I ain't never gonna shut you out. And everywhere I'm looking now, I'm surrounded by your embrace. Baby, I can see your halo. You know you're my saving grace. And everything I need and more, it's written all over your face. Baby, I can feel your halo. I pray you won't fade away. I can see your halo. I can see your halo, 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 still writing the survey, then keep on going. But if you're back with me, then head on over to Gallery View and take a look around. Look at all the beautiful people here. You got a light you want to hold up? You want a little sway like Marnie's got going on, or Sally's got her light going? Beautiful. Love it, Dan. Here we go. And everywhere I'm looking now, I'm surrounded by your embrace. Baby, I could see a halo. You know you're my saving grace. And everything I need and more, it's written all over your face. Baby, I could feel your halo. I pray you won't fade away. I can see your halo, Ann, and Jackie, Linda, of course, Dion. I could see your halo. I could see your halo. I could see your halo, 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 halo. All right, everybody do this. I could see your halo, 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 halo.
You're all welcome to unmute if you want to give an appreciation to Peter Katz, to Danny
Albert!
Friedland, each other.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I loved it.
Marvel.
Thank you so much. Amazing session.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Hope
you.
to see you again.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Much appreciated. You made a big difference to my day.
Thank you. Love you, Danny.
Bye, all. Bye,
Love you,
Danny.
Danny.
Love you all.
Thank you. Love you so much.
Thank you so much. Love you.
Love you, love you, love you.
Thank you, Danny.
Yeah, love you.